random wherever you may be and however you may be watching. Thank you so much for giving us this little bit of your time. Boy, a busy week coming up in the NFL. One of the bigger games of the season, most anticipated matchups coming up. An intriguing Thursday night matchup we're going to talk about. And is Aaron Rodgers on his way back to the playing field this year? We're going to talk about that and so much more with my amazing co-host, starting with the Shape from Lone Star State, my man Tex. What's up, brother?
You know, obviously I watched the Cowboys Thanksgiving game, and the most alarming thing I learned from that football game was how horny Tony Romo is for Dolly Parton. I don't know if you saw it or not, but after the halftime show, Tony Romo's comments about just how good she looked in that cowboy cheerleader knockoff costume. Kind of worrisome. I didn't know he was into the 90-year-old women. But hey, you're Tony Romo, so I'll give it a pass.
Well, I gotta defend him on this. She doesn't look like a 90-year-old woman.
Right. Well, I know this is one of those situations where she's more plastic than human at this point. Does she even qualify as a person? Like, is she a walking Barbie doll? I don't know. But the way that Jim Nance had to kind of like steer away from Tony Romo's comments was very comedic. If you haven't seen it, go find it. I'm sure it's on YouTube. So very funny stuff.
Yeah, I do not know what that was all about. Tony Romo was definitely in rare form. And joining us again, as always, is the fantasy rookie Marcus. What's up, brother?
Hey, just happy to join. Working stuff out, but hey, I'm here. I'd like to point out I was the only one right about Green Bay after last week.
Yes,
the Lions have proved me correct again that they did not deliver on Thanksgiving.
And that's fair, because we were just like, I don't know. Are you sure about that, buddy? You're kind of going out on a limb. But no, the idiot
blind squirrel found his nut. That's all I'm saying.
The idiot savant that he is, he actually picked that one. He got it all wrong. The Rose Gaming said he was going to be here. He will probably pop in at some point. I know he was planning on coming by, so when he does come on, he will be on to give us his thoughts on all of our stories tonight. Let's start, of course, with Aaron Rodgers. And Tex, it came out today that Aaron Rodgers has actually started his 21-day window to work out and get his 21-day practice window to work out and maybe, perhaps, possibly come back this season. Now, I want to clarify that this does not mean he is 100% going to play, and his workout schedules are going to be very, very lightweight, no contact, obviously. Basically just doing some throwing like he's been doing on the sideline of the games for the last couple of weeks. But this is one of the crucial first steps of getting him back onto the field. Tex, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers starting his practice window and potentially coming back this year?
It's like I posted earlier today. I call complete bull crap on the injury that he had. There is no way you have a full ACL tear like he allegedly did. If you come back within 3 months, that's not possible. Yeah. Either we have seen, look at Robinson and Atlanta lying on the injury reports. This has happened a few times this year within football. I 100% believe that they fudged the paperwork a little bit. There's no way he had a full ACL tear. I don't buy it for a minute. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, he said, he was on I think it was Pat McAfee show the other day I watched. He said it depends on his health and their playoff possibilities. I don't know the Jets' exact record right now, but they're not playoff possible. So given the fact that the first hit he probably takes, he's probably done again, I would guess, I don't think he comes back. I think this is a distraction to give false hope to a team that is going nowhere fast, and no, he's not coming back this year. And if he is, he's stupid for it. I don't think so.
I don't know, Marcus. What do you think? It does. I agree with Tex that it seems like kind of a stretch that a complete Achilles tear at the age of 39. He actually just turned 40 recently. That it's not going to heal that quickly to the point where he can play NFL level football. What do you think of the idea of Aaron Rodgers coming back?
I think it's a joke. Okay, cool. If he seriously does come back, fine. He's pulled off one hell of a miracle where people who have had this injury before that's been career ending. Not because they can't get healed up from it, but because just because you heal up for something doesn't mean you can play the same way. You're still going to have the problems lingering on. So if he comes back and he acts like everything's fine, it's just going to show that he was pulling off something where he didn't want to play off for the last few games. And right now, the Jets' record is 4-7. So their chances
Oh,
are
okay.
none.
I wasn't sure what it was.
If they'd have to, everyone else would have to lose, and the Jets would probably have to win all of their last games in order for a shot to make it. So
I'm trying to look at the overall playoff picture for the AFC real quick, but yeah, I don't. I'm not with Tex. I don't think that it was fake. However, I
I don't know.
do.
I smell bullcrap, dude.
Well, I mean, because he had to know that. Yeah, right now they're 4-7. They're third in the division. Their net points are -75. They've lost 4 straight. They've lost 4 of their last 5. They're not in good shape right now. They're 1-3 in the division. There's really no way they're actually going to.
they're 15 on the whole playoff prediction. So
yeah, they're 15th in the AFC.
yeah,
Right.
Let's see. They're let's see. They look at the wins. They are. Let's see. They are. They're bottom quarter of the league. I mean, there's only 3 teams that have fewer wins than them in the NFL. So it's not going to happen. But let's see. I can look at the playoff picture real quick and see how far they're out on that. But while that's coming up, I mean, seriously, I don't think it was fake because Aaron Rodgers would have to know that the chances of them making the playoffs without a decent quarterback like him were going to be almost none anyway. The idea of him saying, I'm going to take 11 or 12 weeks off, pretend like I got hurt so that I can come in at the end of the season to be the hero, there would be no end of the season because really by week 4 or 5, they were done. I mean, they just were not they were not a team that was going to make it. Let's see. Right now, they are 15th in the AFC. They only consider the top 16 teams as playoff contenders, and they are not really close. I mean, honestly, Houston's probably going to be better than them. The Broncos are better than them. Buffalo's better than them. I think
Indianapolis is better than them.
yeah.
Cincinnati would probably hold them off even without Burrow. The Raiders, I don't know about. The Chargers, the Titans, I don't know about. Those are the ones that are closest to them. And then, of course, there's the Patriots, who for some reason have not been eliminated from the playoffs yet at 2-9. But
that's crazy.
But I mean, the reality is, they're referring to the Jets as one of the on the bubble teams. I don't know why, but obviously there's 7 playoff spots, and right now there are 8 teams ahead of them, 7 teams ahead of them. So it's not going to work out very well because honestly they would have to win out, and let's be absolutely honest, they're not going to win out because they're playing Atlanta this week. Atlanta, I think, is probably a better team and is going to beat them, so they'd have to win out. So I'd imagine that by the time this week's games are over, they're going to actually start eliminating people from playoff contention on NFL.com, which is probably long overdue. But I mean, but they were never going to be playoff contenders without Aaron Rodgers, so I don't know. I don't quite believe that Aaron Rodgers was like, I'm going to take the first, 2/3 of the season off, and then I'm going to come back and be the hero. There would be nothing. I mean, it's great to be. It would be great if he came back this week and won the last 4 or 5 games and made a showing of it, but it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't get him in the playoffs. No. It wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't do anything at all for his legacy. It wouldn't do anything at all for their season. So I don't know what sense that makes. And Rodgers is a lot of things. Arrogant is one of the things that comes to mind, but I don't think he's stupid. You know what I mean? That would have to be something that came. But from one point of view, I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, Rodgers knows that he's got a lot more games behind him than in front of him. So maybe to him, it's a worthwhile risk to, when you injure his Achilles the way he did, that he says, okay, rather than sit out for a full year and not know how I'm going to feel going into training camp next year, maybe I'll try this experimental thing, getting the Achilles bridge or whatever the hell he got, and see if I can come back this year, because he figures either he plays one more season and retires, or he retires now because he fucked his ACL up, his Achilles tendon up again. So, I mean, bottom line is he's already at the end. So taking a chance now and hastening the end is a worthy risk for a guy like him who wants to try to get out there and play some more football this year. Yeah. You know what I mean? If he was a rookie quarterback or in his second or third year of a team with a lot of promise, I would say take the year, heal, let them add some more pieces. It'll be that much better for you when you come back. But for Rodgers, I just don't think he has that kind of time left. I don't think he's got that much football left in him.
The biggest part of this for me is he basically picked this team from coordinators to wide receivers that he wanted. New York just opened up the checkbook and they just picked the guys that Aaron Rodgers wanted. So even Aaron Rodgers less, look at how mediocre these guys are without Aaron Rodgers. So you bring back a less than Aaron Rodgers with a bad wheel, basically. How much better? How many more wins does he add if you take the Jets the way they are right now and add Aaron Rodgers? Let's give him 50%. I'll be generous. You add a 50% health Aaron Rodgers. Is that 1-2 wins more in the season? Because I don't see him beating many more teams, assuming Aaron Rodgers were to go out there and not get destroyed. Because that's the first thing that's going to happen. The first time he takes a big hit, I don't think he gets back up. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it makes much sense for him to try to come back this year. I mean, I understand if his idea is that he wants to rush back because he knows he doesn't have much football left in him. But I mean, looking at the upcoming schedule, let's see. We'll go down to what's left. You've got the Atlanta Falcons, which is a winnable game with Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, maybe. I don't know that they're going to beat Houston even with Aaron Rodgers. I think Houston is hot right now. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender yet, but they're pretty good. Miami is beating bad teams, and the Jets are a bad team. And I think even with Aaron Rodgers, that'd be a tough game. They'll probably beat Washington. Then they play at Cleveland, which is going to be the tough defense. I don't know. It may be a win because of their offensive struggles right now. They're on like their fifth quarterback or something like that. And then they finish the season at New England against the Patriots, who are the only one of the three teams in the NFL that are worse than them. So, I mean, you're looking at 1-2 more win, maybe 3, maybe 4 more wins of your next 5 games. Maybe that's if some things go your way. But I mean, Cleveland is still a losable game, even with Aaron Rodgers. Atlanta's a losable game, even with Aaron Rodgers. So you could very easily roll up in here and win. He could very easily come back this week and win 1 game the rest of the way out, and that'd be it. So I don't know.
Say, out of those remaining games, the only one, if Aaron Rodgers were to come back, that I could see them winning would be New England. I don't think. I know they're not going to beat Houston. Houston's rolling right now. Houston with Stroud and Tank Dell and Nico Collins, they have figured it out. Miami's going to beat them. Atlanta's not great, but they're better than what the Jets are right now.
Yeah.
The only one I could see them winning, with or without Aaron Rodgers, would be New England, because I'll be real honest with you, if I was New England, I'd just lose from here on out to get the top draft pick in the 2024 draft. I'd just tank the season. That's what I'd do at this point. But, pride goes before a fall, right? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like that whole statement that Aaron Rodgers made, it's just his ego. He wants to prove that he can. 100%. He wants to come back. He wants to prove that he's the one that can only bring the Jets back to a win. But he's not. He's just going to make a fool of himself, and he's killing his career right now while doing it.
Yeah, I don't see the point in him rushing back. Not for him or for the Jets. I mean, if you're the Jets, you gave up so much. Like Tech said, you spent all this money on the guys that he wanted. You gave up the draft capital and stuff to get him. I mean, even if you only are going to have him for 1 full year after all this mess, make it a good year. Don't make it this year where it's going to be where he's not going to do you any good at all. And then, going to next year, you've got all the guys that he wants. Maybe you've added a couple of pieces in the draft or free agency that make him happy. And he's going to go out there in a much better position to make a strong run next year. Because let's face it, the Jets are not in the strongest division in the NFL. The Bills have been very human this year. Miami is very human this year. New England is not the New England of 20 years ago. I mean, it's a division that they can win if they're healthy and have the right people. Rodgers would have been the right people to have probably won the division, especially the way Buffalo has kind of gone down the tubes a little bit this year. They're
they fell apart.
and not
They're
good.
garbage now.
So yeah, this was a winnable division for Aaron Rodgers, but he's not healthy. So why go out there right now and, if you're lucky, finish in third place instead of fourth and still miss the playoffs? I don't get it. I mean, you're not going to catch Miami. You're probably not going to catch Buffalo. Why go through all that? Why rush yourself back on a 40-year-old torn Achilles for nothing? It just doesn't make any sense to me, because I fear that what's going to end up happening is he's going to roll out there the last couple of games of the season for whatever his reasonings are, and then he's going to roll up against like the Cleveland defense. I mean, the Cleveland defense, I mean, say what you will about their offensive struggles with, them being on their third quarterback this year, but I mean, their defense is still strong. I mean, I know Myles Garrett's dealing with a shoulder thing, but their defense is still strong, one of the strongest in the NFL. So it's like they're not going to take it easy on you because you're a 40-year-old man with an Achilles bridge in his foot. You know what I mean? They're not going to be like, okay, we're a two-hand touch for Aaron Rodgers today. We're just going to like push him and then be like, okay, you're down. They're not going to do that. They're going to come after him because they know that, and the offensive line for the Jets is just not that good. I mean, they imagine a third play, for Christ's sake.
Could you imagine okay, let's just throw this out here. Let's play crazy world. Aaron Rodgers comes back. Aaron Rodgers back week 14, whatever, week 15, whatever it may be. I would hate to be the first defense that has to play him, because those referees are already going to have those flags in hand anytime a defensive lineman or anybody gets anywhere near him. If he even turns sideways a little bit, roughing the passer, whatever, they're going to baby him just like they've done every other Mahomes, Brady, Drew Brees, whichever star quarterback that they're protecting at that time. Golden boy Aaron Rodgers is going to be basically, you might as well put flags around his waist, because that's the only way you're going to be able to touch him. That's just the way it's going to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, there is, and there's a potential fantasy impact to this. If he were to come back, he would immediately impact the fantasy value of a lot of players. Including his own.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And he would come back. I mean, like, what, championship week is week 15, I think, in most leagues. So
most leagues, yeah.
So I mean, if he were to come back in time for a fantasy championship, somebody would take a flyer on him. I wouldn't, because my personal feeling is if that was his first game back, he would probably take it easy. He wouldn't really rush it. They'd probably lean on the run game a lot more. So, I mean, maybe he wouldn't go balls out. But, I mean, week 16, 17, when the fantasy season is mostly over for a lot of leagues, he might open it up a bit. But, I mean, if he were back for week 15, fantasy championship, I don't think I'd touch him for that game.
I've got 7 fantasy teams that I manage. The only Jet that I had was Breece Hall, and I traded him like week 3. I have no Jets anywhere. I think I had their defense for a couple weeks on one of the teams, and then I dumped them pretty quickly once I realized, they suck. So I have nobody from that team on there whatsoever. So, it wouldn't be any advantage for me to pick up Aaron Rodgers, because I'm not going to benefit from any of those fantasy points. So, hey, whichever Jets if I had to guess, most of the Jets wide receivers are probably widely available somewhere on the bottom of the free agent pile. So, probably not too many people fighting to get them, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I don't know. Go down in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Aaron Rodgers is taking an important step back towards the football field with his 21-day practice window. Let us know if you guys think he's going to play this year, or if he should play this year, or what even next year. What do you think he's going to do next year, being 40 years old? He'll turn 41 this time in a year from now, coming off an Achilles injury on a team that is not so great. I don't know. Let us know what you guys think about Aaron Rodgers in the comments below. Now let's get to probably the most anticipated regular season game of the year. It's going to be the NFC title game rematch from last year. A more healthy, fully functional San Francisco 49ers team is going to the city of brotherly love to play the Philadelphia Eagles. This is going to be a smash mouth football game by every stretch of the imagination. I'll go to you first, Marcus. This has been a game that a lot of people have had circled on their calendar, especially if you're a 49er fan like me or an Eagles fan like so many people out there. But even fans of other teams are kind of looking at this and saying, this is going to be a heavyweight boxing match that's going to go several rounds. What do you think this game is going to look like?
I think it's going to be a really close one. I probably no more than 7 points by the end of the setup. Because, I mean, both of them are 1 and 2 for the playoff predictions right now for the NFC. So, at the very least, they swap spots, and then they're going at it again during the playoffs. It's going to be a rough one. It's pretty much going to be a rivalry game where it's going to be heavy on both sides regardless. And I feel it's not going to be that high of a scoring game because the defense are both going to be rocking it. So it'll be a low game with about 7 points of a difference.
Well, the spread right now is Niners by 3.5. So they're 3.5 point favorites on the road in Philly, which is a bit surprising because I would have figured Philly to be probably a 3 to 5 point favorite, but being at home and all that. But I mean, the odds makers are looking at it. They're saying the Niners are 100% healthy. They're back at full strength. They're back on a roll, and they're going into Philly, which has not struggled a whole lot. But I mean, that last game was a tough one against Buffalo.
Yeah,
Went to overtime. They won that one in overtime by a field goal. But I don't know, Tex, what do you think? Big game, probably the most anticipated regular season matchup of the year. Who do you got taking this game and why?
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one to watch. Keep in mind, Dallas, who's just the tier below both of these teams, just went into Philly and should have beaten them if they hadn't beat themselves in that game. Literally, if Dak doesn't run out before he goes into the end zone, the Cowboys beat the Eagles. But yeah, Marcus is exactly on point here. This has so many playoff implications, not just for these teams, but teams like Detroit, Dallas, all of those other NFC teams that are just right below. I mean, we're looking at this is an earth-shattering game. I mean, this is one I'll be rooting for the Niners on. I'm not putting on red and gold anytime soon, but I'll be rooting for you boys in this one because hey, we need that. But
if Dallas
wins
Thursday, if the Niners win and Dallas wins Thursday, that puts them a game behind Philly in the division, and they still have 2 games left, or they still have 1 game left this year against each other.
There's one more.
So that's an important game. This is an important game for Dallas.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Those teams, this isn't just important for Niners and Eagles, Cowboys, Lions, all of those other NFC teams that are just a cusp below. I mean, let's be honest here. At this point, there's so many injuries. Whoever is healthiest at the end of the season is probably going to win the Super Bowl. May not be the best team, but the healthiest and the luckiest team. So you've got teams that are hot right now, like Dallas. The Lions are, I still don't trust their defense. And as much as I like Dan Campbell, I don't really like him as a head coach. He makes too many weird choices. But this game right here, this Niners-Eagles game, this has huge implications. As far as score goes, I think Marcus is right on with that at 7 at most. I've got this thing 23-20 for the 49ers. I think the 49ers are a little bit better. I don't think the Eagles are as good as their record shows. I've said this multiple times on here. I think the Niners get the win. It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be ugly. But I think San Francisco comes out on top.
Yeah, the homer in me says the Niners are going to win this one. And even just looking at everything on paper, the Niners, I mean, a 3-point favorite makes sense. They're 100% healthy right now, with the exception of who was it? Eric Armstead, I think, was dealing with a thing, but they said he's probably going to play. So and
one of those
Mason,
defensive backs or something, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah, he's one of the defensive tackle, but
tackle.
But they've got a couple of backup guys like Mason. They said is dealing with a foot thing. And Ray McLeod was dealing with a rib injury, I think, which is kind of sucks because he's our big kick returner. But at the same time, it's like the Niners are coming in there 100% healthy. The Eagles are fairly healthy, but on paper, it's like I still look at it and say the Niners just have too many weapons. I don't know if anybody's got enough defense to not be spread thin by Ayuk and Debo and Kittle and fucking McCaffrey and Juszczyk can even like catch out of the backfield and get the short yardage stuff. Then you've got Bell and Jawan Jennings. You've got even Ray McLeod gets a catch every now and again. It's like I feel like they're going to just spread them too thin, and there just won't be enough defensive personnel that Philly could possibly put on the field to cover everybody. But this is one of those games where none of that shit seems to matter.
Yeah,
we talked about the rivalry games last week. You could sit here and analyze the stats and analyze the matchups and talk about all this, that, and the other thing. But once kickoff happens, all that shit, and this is it for most games, but I think this game in particular, where once kickoff happens, all that shit's going to go out the window, and nothing in the world is going to exist outside the stadium. It's like that is going to be the center of the universe for 2 or 3 hours, and the question is who's going to live up to it. Both teams have not weak, but not the strongest defensive backs. So I think you're going to see Purdy hitting a lot of stuff. I think you're going to see Hurts taking a couple of shots downfield. The run game, I give the edge to the Niners. I think the Niners probably have a little bit better wide receiving core, but Philly's not that far behind. Obviously, the quarterbacks are matched up very well. I mean, they're definitely different styles, but I mean, Purdy, if he needs to throw for 350 and a couple of touchdowns, he's shown that he can do it.
Yeah.
And he's mobile enough to get a few yards on the ground, maybe run for a touchdown, keep some drives alive by running for a first down. Hurts can do all the same things. It's really, really difficult. I in my gut, I say Niners by like 5 or 6, but this game could go. It could be a blowout either way. It could be close either way. It really is just a coin flip on exactly what this game is going to turn out as. I feel like the Niners are going to go in there and win this one. I think the 3 points is probably pretty close. Like I said, 3 to 5 points. It's going to be one of those games where I'm going to need to double up my blood pressure medication on Sunday about 4:00 to make sure that I get through, because I may need to pour an extra couple of these to kind of calm the nerves, because Sunday is going to be a struggle. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty rough day for me and for most Niner fans, most Eagle fans, and really anybody watching. Because like Tech said, this is one of those games that has a big effect for a lot of teams, because it's not just making the playoffs, it's playoff seeding. Trying to get a home game in the first round of the playoffs, trying to maybe avoid a wild card spot, take the last division spot, and maybe not have to play the first week of the playoffs. Get that bye week to get healthy, work your game plan a little better, hone things in that respect. So I mean, having that first week off, not having to play the wild card round, is really important. So this matters. I mean, like for Dallas especially, like I said, if the Niners can win this game and Dallas can beat Seattle on Thursday, and then go into Philly and beat them, all of a sudden they're tied for the division. I don't know how the tiebreaker would go one way or the other, but I mean that's a seriously important step for Dallas, because playing Philly in the playoffs is only part of the problem. Playing them in Philly is a whole other problem in and of itself, because of the way it's tough to go into Philly and win games, especially late in the season in the playoffs. So I know this is an important game that has ramifications all throughout the NFC. And, for me personally, as a Niner fan who wants to see my Niners win, and I'm still feeling a little jaded about everybody last year saying, oh, Purdy got exposed, blah, blah, blah. Niners got exposed. I'm like, they basically had a janitor playing quarterback from the second quarter on. I'm like, I don't know what you want. I mean, you name me one other NFL team last year that could have taken their third string quarterback in the position that the Niners were in and still made the playoffs. That would have went from Trey Lance to Jimmy Garoppolo to Brock Purdy, and then had Brock Purdy, who was the last pick of the draft, who was the guy that nobody expected to see a legit snap all year in the regular season, rattle off 6 or 8 straight wins and get to the NFC title game. And the only reason why he didn't get a whole lot of time in the NFC title game is because he tore his elbow up. Come on, you name me one other team that could have done that. Expose the Niners, my ass. The Niners exposed everybody else by letting a third-string quarterback go in there and carve him up the way that he did. And he's been doing it. Even in the games the Niners have lost this year, Purdy is not – there's only really one of them where Purdy hasn't looked great. Even the game against Cleveland, and I was there, Purdy, while he had some – and he still does this, the whole, as he's going down, getting sacked, kind of flinging the ball up in the air. That's a Jimmy Garoppolo move, and I really wish he'd stop doing that. But it's like even that game in Cleveland, with the game on the line, they needed to drive down to get into field goal range. And guess who did that? Brock Purdy ran against that really good Cleveland defense, got him downfield in a field goal position. It didn't work out. Moody missed the kick, and that sucks. But Brock Purdy did his part against a good defense.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, you can say that the Niners were exposed all you want, but they're rolling in here healthy. We're going to find out exactly how exposed that they really were after this game is over. And it's not just the winning and losing. If Brock Purdy goes out there, let's say the Niners lose. If he throws for 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and he has the Niners in the game in the last 2 minutes, that to me is a huge win for Brock Purdy. I mean, because he's beating teams that he's supposed to beat. He's beating teams that are tough teams. He's beating some good defenses. Yeah, they had the 3-game slide where nothing seemed to go right. Yeah, I get it. Every team's going to have those. But, I mean, if he goes in there and has a good game against Philly and keeps the Niners in this game right up to the last second and maybe even goes on another drive late in the game to give them a chance to win, that to me is Brock Purdy and the Niners exposing Philly, because I still don't think Philly's all that great.
Well, when it comes to the quarterback comparison, you got Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts. I still say Brock Purdy is more of a game manager style quarterback. I don't think he's an elite superstar quarterback. As you just said, on the second half of that game, the Niners brought in the janitor to play quarterback. Credit where it's due. That team is stacked at every position. Yeah. The offensive line is great. Take the whole Batman and Robin comparison, like they do with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. Who's Batman and who's Robin? If you were to compare Brock Purdy to his wide receivers and running back crew, they're greater than he is at quarterback. I think you could pull Brock Purdy and plug someone else in and still get a similar result. As far as Jalen Hurts goes, I don't think he's as good as Dak Prescott is. I'll be real honest with you. And that's not me coming from Homer Cowboy fan. I think legitimately Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, but the world seems to not agree with me on that. That's fine, whatever. But, he's got the explosive play potential. He can run better, it seems like, than Purdy can. But I like Purdy's arm over Jalen Hurts' legs. So, like I said, they're different styles of quarterback play. We'll see how it comes out. But ultimately, I think the Niners come out with this win. It may be ugly, but you know what? Considering they got beat by Cleveland, I think they'll take a win against the Eagles in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So I think they'll take it.
Yeah, I don't know. Go down in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Biggest game of the season, probably hands down. I mean, whatever happens the rest of the season, this has been the most anticipated game for football fans all year. Niners going into Philly, the NFC title game matchup from last year against the Eagles. Go down in the comments below. Let us know who you guys think is going to win that game and why. Let's move on to the fantasy talk now. And let's get into the waiver wire. I'll go to you first, Tex. I mean, we've been saying it all year long. You win your fantasy leagues on draft day and the waiver wire. So do you think teams should be looking at right now on the waiver wire to help get them in good position going into the fantasy playoffs, which start here in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I actually made quite a few moves this week and kind of looking through about what people could do to we all know at this time of the year fantasy, how many times do we get injury updates? Oh, this guy's questionable, even though the injury report says, oh, he's just got a strained toe or something. Some injuries are worse than others. We just saw Jonathan Taylor go down for Indianapolis for a hand surgery for a couple of weeks. The first name that I picked up on waiver wires this week was Zach Moss, his backup. He played early in the season. He kind of had a rise this week. When I first looked at him, he was only 49% rostered. I went back like 2 hours later, he was up to 79% rostered. People were picking this guy up left and right. They do have Tennessee this week. So I went back and I looked at the stats at what Zach Moss brought in that game. He went for 165 yards and a couple touchdowns in that game. So if you need running back help, Zach Moss might be a good potential for you to pick up. And he's got a favorable matchup next week against Cincinnati, which gives up a lot to running backs. I forget the exact stat point. I didn't write it down. But he's got a couple good weeks here that you could use him. Yeah. Last week, I had said you might. Well, I said I had picked up Logan Thomas, the Washington Commanders tight end. This guy sucks. He was a Band-Aid that did not cover the shotgun hole that Mark Andrews did. So I had to go back digging again. And the only person that I could find that might do something, and I have no faith or hope in this, even though he just had a big game, is Pat Freiermuth, the Steelers tight end. He is currently 49% rostered in Yahoo leagues. The dude just had the best game of the season so far. He's got a new offensive coordinator there in Pittsburgh, and he's getting a lot of checkdowns to him. So he's getting a lot of targets, a lot of action going his way. If you're hurting for tight end help, that might be a fix you could do. Now, the third pick, the one that I was very happy to get, I picked up one of my Cowboys, Brandon Cooks, the wide receiver. He's only 50% or 56% rostered. He scored in the last 3 games. Him and Dak are working really, really good together. I mean, a lot of times you'll see CeeDee Lamb getting double coverage, sometimes triple coverage. This is why Brandon Cooks is picking up yards. He's getting catches. He's getting attention. So, Dallas is rolling right now, man. So go with the hot hand. So if you need a wide receiver, he may not be number 1 wide receiver, but number 2 or 3 for sure would be a great pickup. And the final one that I got last minute, I picked up the Atlanta defense. Not because I like them, but because they're playing the Jets, and the Jets suck. So, maybe they can help you defensive-wise.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Atlanta defense a little bit in the start-sit section of the show later on. What about you, Marcus? What kind of players do you think people should be looking for right now on the waiver wire?
I just picked an interesting one. One that I tried to get at the beginning of the season, actually, but someone else that drafted before me. Tyler Higbee, tight end out of Los Angeles Rams. Just looking at his score, it's kind of a roller coaster, not consistent throughout week for week, but he's a tight end. I'm surprised some of these weeks he's made double digits. And I mean, going up against Cleveland, he's got a better shot at making more than the 5-point sleeper has him projected to go out for. As well as I picked up another one that I had. Khalif, Raymond, sorry, from Detroit Lions. Granted, even after the loss for last week, which is still a good game, he scored 14 points. So second time he's done double digits for the season on Sleeper, at least where or Fantasy has it set up. I mean, he's scoring decent compared to other wide receivers I got out there. He might not be the best pick out there, but he might just be, okay, cool, I know I got a few guys on bye. He's a safe option for right now. I know I can put him in, he'll at least score something versus hoping someone scores something versus negative.
Yeah, it should be pointed out that this is one of the worst bye weeks for fantasy players. There's 6 teams on buys this week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is quite a bit. So
half my teams are empty, dude. It is awful.
Yes, as I was getting the stream together today, I was looking around at my teams, and I was like, one of my teams, I had almost literally half my team was on bye weeks. I had to make a couple of quick moves. I managed to get some players that I like, but I had to make a couple of quick moves. But so this is going to be a brutal bye week. But the good news is there's going to be less and less as we get, because we're 2 weeks away. I know in our sleeper league we're 2 weeks away from the playoffs. We've only got 2 regular season weeks left in fantasy, and then it's on to the playoffs. Yeah. But yeah, so thankfully by the time the playoffs roll around for most leagues here in a couple of weeks, we'll be done with bye weeks. For me, and I'm going to start with the defense. Sorry, Marcus, but I like Jacksonville against Cincinnati. Right
now,
it's
questionable for the Bengals right now.
And I thought, yeah, and look, they're backup. What's the guy's name? I forget his name. I forget the backup.
It's bad. I don't even remember his name.
Real quick. Yeah, the Bengals fan doesn't know either. but
a lot of names come on through his head. So.
Yeah. let's see, what is the guy's name? Not Carr, not Winship. Browning.
Yeah.
Browning is the guy's name. He didn't have a bad game. I mean, he's projected to get something like 11.5 points. He ended up getting 12.5 points last week. Let's see, he went 19 of 26 for 227 and a touchdown and one interception in Sunday's loss to the Steelers. He only lost 16-10. He also had 3 rushes for 9 yards. I mean, that's not a terrible stat line for a backup you weren't expecting to see any playing time this year. But they've struggled without Burrow. The Jags have forced a lot of turnovers this season, and they're playing a rookie quarterback who's only on the second start. I mean, I want to give Browning a little bit of love because he's got Jamar Chase and they've got some good weapons in Cincinnati. But does he know how to use them? Is the question. It's going to take a couple of years for him to figure out exactly how to use some of that talent that he's got. So, I mean, I actually picked Jacksonville's defense up in one of my leagues, and I'm going to be starting this year. They're only rostered in 39 or 37% of ESPN.com leagues. The other one, and look, if you'd have asked me like 6 weeks ago if I'd have thought this person was going to be worth having around or not, I probably would have said probably not this year anyway, is Russell Wilson. I mean, many a quarterback has been lost this season, and not only that, he's kind of rediscovered his rushing ability, and he's had great matchups in the fantasy playoffs. Not only are they hot right now, he's figured out Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and all these guys. He's finally developed a rhythm with his receivers. Throughout the fantasy playoffs, he plays Houston, who's giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks, San Diego twice, which is giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks, and Detroit, which is giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks this year. The only game that he's got where it might not be a great matchup is New England, because despite the fact that they're not winning a lot, they're not giving up a lot of fantasy points to quarterbacks. But I mean, if that's the one game you have to sit him, play someone, and stream somebody else, that's not bad. I mean, he's looking like the Russell Wilson of old right now, a little bit anyway. And if he's going to have a little bit of a resurgence, it's probably going to come in the next 5-6 weeks. And it's coming at just the right time for the fantasy playoffs. Another one, we talked about, I think, last week is Keaton Mitchell. I mean, he got 89 scrimmage yards last week, which isn't a whole lot. But, what's he getting? Let's see. John Harbaugh and all these guys are watching. They're watching the tape. They're seeing what he can get. If he can get 15+ opportunities a game down the stretch, he's kind of a must roster. But he's got really good matchups for defenses that give up points to running backs for the rest of the season. And we are in fantasy playoff time. So if you want somebody who's a solid flex, maybe even a running back too, that's a guy that could get you some very important points over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. They're coming out of it. They have a bye this week, but coming out of it, good matchups are going to help you a lot. He's only rostered in 25% of NFL.com leagues. So I mean, people are still kind of sleeping on him a little bit. And Russell Wilson, I mean, he's still only rostered in 53% of NFL.com leagues. So I mean, he's there in a lot of leagues. I think in the 4 leagues that I'm in, I think he's available in like 2 of them, which is right about right with his his NFL.com numbers. But I mean, if he's going to get hot, it's going to be soon. So those are the 3 guys that I think you could get some value from on the waiver wire. Go down in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. What do you think of our waiver wire picks? And who are you looking at in the waiver wire to help your team? Now let's move on to for the first time this year, we're gonna play a little bit of starter sit. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna throw 2 names at you guys from 3 different positions: the quarterback position, the wide receiver position, the tight end position, and the defense. And I'm gonna ask you guys, who are you gonna start and who are you gonna sit out of these matchups? Here's the first one. I give you Tua Tagovailoa. We'll just call him Tua.
God bless you.
Or Sam Howell of the Washington football team. Tex, I'll go to you first. Who are you starting in that matchup and who are you sitting? I think this is one of the tougher ones.
Oh no, give me Tua. Obviously, he seems to kind of be boom or bust, but I saw what Sam Howell did with Washington. No, thank you. Give me Tua easily. That's not a problem.
Marcus, how about you? Tua or Sam Howell? Who are you starting and who are you sitting?
I gotta go with Tua as well. Like Texas said, we've seen how the Redskins Washington has
Whatever their name is this week, the football team in Washington. Who cares?
Yeah, the team in Washington. They're still trying to figure out whatever the hell they're doing, even their name at this point. I mean, if you can't have the name down for your team, I'm not going to trust you in order to win the game.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a roll of the dice, like any fantasy setup.
You know, for me, I mean, look, I'm looking at some things, and Tua has slowed down a little bit lately. But the team right now, they're playing against a team that has given up the second most passing yards and touchdowns this season with Washington. So I can't discount that fact. On the other hand,
Yeah, but Sam Howell has to be able to get that ball to his wide receiver in order to get those stats. I don't think he can do that. Now, obviously, he just played the Dallas defense, a week ago. So that's kind of that's a really good pass defense that he went up against. But the one thing that has to be figured into this is which one of these guys has Tyreek Hill, and that's Tua.
Yeah.
Well, Howell, you talked about them just playing Dallas, which has got a solid defense. He did throw for 300 yards and ran for a score against Dallas. He didn't throw for one, but I don't think did he throw any interceptions that game? I forget. I don't remember looking at the stat line. But
Who's Sam Howell?
Yeah.
Yeah, he threw a pick six to Bland to get his fifth in a row.
That's right.
Which is an NFL record. Yeah. So yeah, he did throw a pick six.
But he threw for 300 yards and ran for a score against Dallas. He's gotten 17 plus points in 5 straight games in 8 of his last 9. And Washington's likely going to be playing from behind this game against Miami, so they're going to be throwing a lot. So that makes garbage time really important. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say I sit Tua and I start Howell. I mean, this is going to be my – now, look, we're not talking about who's the better player. We're not talking about who's going to win the game. We're talking about just fantasy. I'm actually starting Howell, not over Tua, but I'm actually starting Howell in one of my leagues. I think it might be my sleeper league. I forget which one. But, yeah, so
even
so
fantasy-wise.
just for the purposes of this game, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Howell over Tua. Not by a whole lot. But it may be really close. But that's where I'm leaning right now. I'm going to go with Sam Howell. I think he's going to get a lot more opportunities, especially late in the game, especially if they're playing from behind 7 or 10 points. He's going to have to put the ball in the air. That's going to help him get some stats, as long as he doesn't throw a shit ton of interceptions.
I know, like I said, even fantasy-wise, one of those guys has Tyreek Hill that was like, what, didn't he already have 1,000 yards by week 7 or week 8? So I'll take my chances with Tua, but that's just me.
See, that was the tough one, though. I mean, because looking at both of them from a fantasy perspective, they were pretty close to even. I am going on a little bit of a limb to say Sam Howell, but I think it's going to be close. You guys could be right on this one. Tua could have the bigger game, but we'll see. Let's go to wide receiver now, and I'll put up Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos against Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns. Tex, what do you think? Between those two, who are you starting? Who are you sitting?
If I had both of those on the roster, I'm going with a hot hand right now. Denver's rolling. Give me Sutton.
Marcus, what do you think? We've got Courtland Sutton of Denver and Amari Cooper of Cleveland. Who are you starting? Who are you sitting?
I'm going to go with Amari Cooper. I feel like Houston's defense is going to be a little bit tougher to get down the field, whereas maybe Cleveland's managed to find open setups to go down the field, even if it's not for a touchdown. For fantasy points, it's hit or miss. So I'm going to take the oddball and go with Cleveland's.
You're going Amari Cooper. So you're starting Amari Cooper and you're sitting Courtland Sutton. Now, for me, look, like Tex said, the Broncos are hot right now. They've won 5 straight. Let's see. Courtland Sutton has topped 15 fantasy points in 4 out of 5 games before last week. He's playing a Houston team that's allowed the 4th most yards to wide receivers since week 8. And it's looking to be a bit of a shootout. That looks good for Courtland Sutton. But if you look at Amari Cooper, he scored a total of 11 points since Deshaun Watson was injured, with a total of 11 points in both those games. Without Watson, he has averaged 7.9 fantasy points a game and 0 touchdowns. 0 touchdowns without Deshaun Watson. And then to top it off, we don't even know who the hell's playing quarterback for the Browns coming to this week. Is it going to be what's his name, the third stringer that played against the Niners? Is it going to be Joe Flacco? Even if it is Joe Flacco, who's had more success, who's got a longer career, maybe a Hall of Famer, Joe Flacco is not the Joe Flacco of old. And to top it all off, it takes a couple of weeks of playing to really develop a rhythm and a good rapport between a quarterback and a receiver. And he just signed with the practice squad of Cleveland, like what, 3-4 days ago? I mean, I mean, Amari Cooper, if he hits one or two big plays and turns one of them into a touchdown, I think that's his entire game worth of points, and I think that'll work. But that's a big if. I mean, especially you don't even know who's going to be throwing him the ball. For me, I'm sitting Amari Cooper. I think this is a pretty easy decision. I'm sitting Amari Cooper, and I'm starting Cortland Sutton. I think you kind of have to. I mean, the Broncos right now look good. They look hot, and Cleveland does not. There's a lot going against Cleveland. But let's see. I'll move on to the tight end now, and I'll hit you with this one. We've got either Trey McBride of Arizona or Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. I'll go to you first, Tex. Who are you starting? Who are you sitting?
So it's McBride or Hill. Oh, let's see. I think New Orleans is kind of on one right now. I'm going to go Hill.
Marcus,
I think that's the better way to go.
Marcus, how about you? You've got McBride from Arizona or Taysom Hill from the New Orleans Saints. Who are you starting? Who are you sitting?
I'll go McBride. I feel like Arizona's pulled too many upsets. They might pull one up this weekend too.
Yeah, but one thing to look at here with this vote, go with who's their quarterbacks. Derek Carr's not great, but I feel like he's better than is it Murray? Is he back for Arizona?
Kyler Murray is, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, between those two throwing to those tight ends, I'm going to go Carr, even though I don't think Carr is great. I think he's the better play here. And I don't know. Like I said, if I were starting one, I'm going Hill in this decision.
Well, I mean, as I look at it, I mean, McBride has 9+ points in all but one game this year, and that was the Cleveland game in which they had a third-string quarterback throwing to him for what it's worth. So he was playing a good defense, and he had a third-string quarterback throwing to him. But twice in that span, he has topped 21 points, and he's playing against Pittsburgh, who's in the top 10 in yards allowed to tight ends since Week 8. Taysom Hill, I'm not going to pull any punches here. I've never liked the guy. I've never liked him as a player. They've never really known how to use him. His fantasy production has been trash the last 2 weeks. I don't think he's the triple threat that everybody says he is. If he was that good of a quarterback, they wouldn't have moved off him to go get Carr. So he's not throwing very much. You've got Alvin Kamara, so you don't really need him to play running back. So you have him as a tight end. I don't get it. But that said, 6 teams are on the bye this week, and tight ends has been a little tough. It's been a little tough to it's been a little tough to gauge this year. Not to mention the New Orleans receiving core is kind of hurting right now. So basically, you've only really got Taysom Hill and Kamara. So if you need to take a flyer on Taysom Hill just as like a 1-week starter, you could probably do worse. But I wouldn't make him my long-term solution at tight end. I mean, he's a second or third tier flex in my opinion, and that's like really hurting in a week like this, where, like I said, a lot of bye week stuff like that. I think it's pretty clear. I'm sitting Taysom Hill, and I'm taking McBride all day long. I think Murray's probably a better quarterback than a more consistent quarterback than the play that they've gotten out of Derek Carr this year. Yes, he's been better the last 5-6 weeks, but that hasn't necessarily resulted in Taysom Hill getting a lot of fantasy points. So I'm taking McBride over Taysom Hill. Now, for the final one, we're going to go defense. Are you taking, let's see, are you taking the Atlanta Falcons against the New York Jets, or are you taking Tampa Bay versus Carolina? I'll go to you first, Tex. What do you think? Atlanta over the Jets, or Carolina, or Tampa Bay over Carolina?
See, funny enough, I was going over my fantasy stuff this afternoon, and I actually contemplated this exact question As you just, so it's like our brains were in sync somehow. I was actually, because I've got both. Like I said, I recommended picking up Atlanta just for this one game, not for going further. But I mean, the Jets are so bad right now. A legitimate fantasy game plan is just pick whoever's playing against the Jets defensive wise. They'll probably have a good week. But that being said, Carolina's a mess. They fired two head coaches within 2 years. I mean, they're just so much nonsense going on. Bryce Young, we saw what he did. Oh, man, I don't know. My gut's telling me go with Atlanta. I think the Jets are just that bad. I think they're just the NFL's doormat this season. And like I said, I kind of have to go with Atlanta considering I told you to pick them up 10 minutes ago. So I can't be a hypocrite here. I got to go with the Falcons. Yeah. So let's go Dirty Bird. So.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Marcus? Atlanta against the Jets or Tampa Bay over Carolina?
Oh, I'm definitely going with Tex here. I'm going with Atlanta. They have a better odds of making points for defensive wise against the Jets too. I mean, Love's thrown several picks this season. The odds of him not throwing one aren't in his favor, so I think you have a better shot going with the Falcons than you do going with Carolina.
Look at it this way. Obviously, the Jets quarterback, Zach Wilson, he sucks. You've got Bryce Young on the other side for Carolina. You've got Hubbard in Carolina at running back, which say what you will, he gets a modest amount of fantasy points.
Chuba Hubbard's not bad.
He's not bad.
I almost put him on my waiver list because he's only rostered in something like 50 or 53% of NFL.
Yeah, no, Hubbard is. He's like he can be like a good pickup, a good flex if you get a running back hurt or something. But what do the Jets have? The Jets have nothing. The potential for pick sixes, interceptions, turnovers are more likely going against New York. That's why I said go with Atlanta.
Yeah.
So keep those things in mind when you're going on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, for me, this one's kind of a toughie. I mean, you're talking about these two defenses are playing two teams that are just a train wreck. I mean, one's a train wreck, one's a dumpster fire. I mean, look, Atlanta, almost all you need to say is they're playing the Jets and Tim Boyle, and that's kind of all you need. Versus Minnesota last week, the Jets gave up 21 fantasy points, including 7 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a pick six. So that's that. I mean, again, Tim Boyle, not Aaron Rodgers, but thank God he's not Zach Wilson either. As far as Tampa Bay, I mean, I even wrote it in my notes here, exactly what Tech said. Carolina's a mess. They just fired their head coach. They've allowed the 4th most fantasy points per game this season to opposing defenses. They've scored 15 points or less since Frank Reich gave up play calling duties 3 weeks ago, and now Frank Reich is gone. I don't see it getting any better for them. Outside of Chuba Hubbard maybe having a decent game where he gets 75 yards and a touchdown, I don't see any other place where they could limit a fantasy defense's points. So for me, it's kind of close because they're both, both Atlanta and Tampa Bay are just playing terrible teams. But I'm going to pick away from you guys for a minute. I say by a hair. I'm taking Tampa Bay. I feel like at least for this week, I feel like Tampa Bay is probably going to get the most points because it's really, really hard to follow up a terrible game like the Jets had last week with another historically terrible game. It's
all like, the Jets have is terrible games. What are you talking about?
If they do that, I think the first thing they should do after the game is over, if they give up another 20 plus defensive fantasy points, is they should all go play the New York, New Jersey lottery, because if maybe lightning will strike twice. If you can give up terrible games like that twice in a row, maybe your luck will change, and if it changes the other way, you can win the Powerball for $500 bajillion or whatever. But I'm taking Tampa Bay by a hair. But again, that's with the caveat that I just don't know that it's possible that the Jets could have 2 terrible games like that back to back. I mean, you just wait. If they had 3 fewer sacks and only gave up 4, and if they threw 2 less interceptions, only threw 1. That'd be a better game. And I think that would make me correct. The truth is, we have to wait and see. I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm taking Tampa Bay by a hair, just by a little bit. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. I don't know. I don't know how that game's going to look. I mean, but yeah, I mean, like I said, Tampa Bay by a hair. So go down in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Do you agree with who we're going to start and who we're going to sit? Some differing opinions. We're going to come back next week and we're going to talk about who was right, who was wrong in our start and sit. Now, I put the focus directly on Tex, and we go to Texas pick 3. Now, let's take a quick minute to do a quick overview of what Tex picked last week and see how he did. He did pick Miami to be 17-9 winners over New Jersey, or over against the New York Jets. We just talked about how bad that game went for the Jets, so obviously he won the Miami game by a lot. He did pick San Francisco 28-12 over Seattle. He did get the win. He did pick Dallas 36-10 over Washington. So 3 wins. But I mean, did any of those games go a little bit differently than what you thought they were going to go score-wise?
I kind of knew. I mean, I don't want to pat myself too hard on the back here. I kind of had a feeling on those. I kind of got nervous a minute with Miami. I thought, because you never really know with the Dolphins. One week they're scoring 70 points. The next week they can't score 5. So I thought, which version of the Dolphins are we going to get? But I felt confident with the picks, and I mean, 3-0, baby, I'll take it. But yeah, as far as this week, I kind of looked at the schedule. There's a few interesting games here. The first one I had picked, I think, is going to be a stinker because both of these teams kind of suck. But I've got the Atlanta Falcons against the Jets. This is going to be an ugly win, but I think Atlanta takes it 17-9. I think the Jets get shut out. I don't even think they get a touchdown this week. I think that running game for the Falcons kind of take over and kind of set the pace. I could see Bijan Robinson actually doing pretty well against that Jets defense. I don't think they really have an answer for him. They've got a pretty good running crew. I could even see Derek London, the wide receiver, having a big day through the air against the Jets defense. A game that I'm actually curious to watch, and I didn't think I would be, but I'm curious to see how good is Gardner Minshew and these Colts again without Jonathan Taylor. We just lost him, for the hand surgery he's going to have. They're bringing back Zach Moss. That's why I told you to bring him back. I think the Colts win an ugly game against a rookie-led Tennessee Titans, 21-14. I think Zach Moss is probably going to be heavily featured, but we'll see. The third one, this one I'm not as confident about, full disclosure. The Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans. We've got a hot Broncos team right now. I think they've won the last 4 or 5 games, something like that.
5 straight.
And Texans are killing. Are they 5 straight ones? I couldn't remember what it was. And they're going against the Houston Texans. 2 good offensives. Sean Payton has completely rejuvenized that Denver team. They don't even look like the same team they did at the beginning of the season. But all that being said, I think C.J. Stroud and company, even with as good of a secondary as the Broncos have, I think they still light it up. I'm going to go Houston Texans 27 to the Denver Broncos 20. I think it's going to be kind of a shootout kind of game. I can see Russell Wilson running around like you were talking about, doing his thing. But I think C.J. Stroud to Tank Dell probably for the win. So Texans, Broncos 27-20, Colts, Titans 21-14, and Falcons, Jets 17-9. You can lock those in. So we'll see.
I don't know. Marcus, you just heard Tex give us his pick 3 for week 12. What do you think about those games? Do you think he's wrong about any of them?
I mean, he already stated the only one where it's going to be a toss or he's right or wrong is going to be the Broncos-Texans game. And that's just because
I'm nervous about that one. I'm nervous.
You got 2 decent teams going up against each other. I mean, obviously, I want Texas to pull out. I got C.J. Stroud on my team, so I want him to be scoring those fantasy points for me. But, I mean, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a close one. I feel like that one's going to be the closest one out of all of them this week.
Yeah, I'll address Denver-Houston first. I agree, Tex. That's probably the hardest one to pick right now because Denver's hot.
I think so.
Houston's got the hot offense. If it does come down to being a shootout, I feel like I give the slight advantage to Denver because Russell Wilson's been there and C.J. Stroud hasn't yet. I'm not saying that C.J. Stroud can't win a shootout. I mean, he's definitely put up some numbers this year. But I mean, experience means a lot. I think, especially at the quarterback position. And I feel like Russell Wilson clearly has the experience, the advantage in experience. But that's a close one. I mean, if anybody's going to stop this hot Denver team over the last 5 weeks, I think it could be Houston. Indy and Tennessee, I think you're probably right. Tennessee they haven't really figured it out at all this year. They've got the guy, what is his name? Mills, what's his name? Will Levis. Playing
Will
quarterback.
Levis,
yeah. The guy who, I don't know, they drafted him really high and he hasn't. I mean, of all the draft, they haven't even called him a bust because he doesn't get any attention. But here's what I think. Look, I think it's possible I'm calling an upset here. I just got done talking shit about the Jets, but this is the way football goes.
Wow, you're pulling are you really going upset for the Jets here? Wow. Okay.
Look, the Jets are bad, but Atlanta's not one of the top 10 teams in the NFL. They may not be one of the top 10 teams in the NFC.
No. Yeah.
So I feel like if you're going to follow up a bad game with an inspired performance, maybe not even inspired, maybe just one where you feel like you get it together in the second half, it might be this game. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Jets. I'm calling it 17-14, probably a last-second field goal.
Okay.
Either a last.
So you're not far off my numbers. You're in the ballpark.
I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I don't think they're going to blow Atlanta out. But I feel like it's going to come down to either a last-second field goal or a really, really poorly timed turnover, like sometime midway through the fourth quarter, that Atlanta's not going to be able to recover from. So there's my big upset of the week. I feel like the Jets might get a field goal better than Atlanta. I'm probably going to be eating a little bit of crow over that one. You guys are probably going to make fun of me next week over this, and rightly so. I will accept all your criticisms.
I mean, y'all were thinking I was going to do the same thing about Green Bay last week.
True.
I was going right off that one. So
kudos. Hey, you were the only one. Yeah. I mean, credit to you. You picked that one out. I mean, you got it, man.
Yeah, so I'm calling it. I think the Jets by 3. It's not going to look good, but I think the Jets by 3 again, either a last-second field goal if they get lucky with, or it's going to be just a really poorly timed turnover by Atlanta late in the game, like somewhere happened with like 6 or 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's just going to be it's some weird fumble, some stupid interception. It's going to be something like that. So it's not going to be like the Jets are going to dominate. They're just going to be the benefactors of a game that neither team's going to look very good. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I mean, hey, if you're going to come back from a terrible performance, where the quarterback spent half the time on his back and a pick, like 3 interceptions and a pick 6, and you couldn't seem to do anything right. You started some guy who was, stocking shelves to Piggly Wiggly 2 weeks earlier. I mean, you got to come back with something that is going to at least be a story. I mean, like I said, it's not going to change the fortunes of the Jets season at all, but I think it could be a story. So there's my big upset. I think the Jets are going to beat Atlanta by 2. I will probably be laughed at and be teased by you guys next week, and that's fine. That's fine. I opened myself up to that freely.
Are you going to ask Casey if you can wear his Jets jersey for the week next week so you can wear it on screen or on the show or whatever?
I don't think there's any possible way he could wash that much of bacon grease out of that jersey for me to wear it next week. It would have to be in like a 24-hour wash cycle for the next 48 hours. But
you could bless that thing. A priest could bless it, and you still wouldn't bring it in your house, but it's one of those.
Jesus himself would lay his healing hands on that and be like, "Oh, what the hell is this?"
Get it off. Get it off.
Like, hand sanitizer.
Not even a fire of the hell could get rid of that. Shoot.
Why does it smell like Tots from Sonic? Well, if you knew Casey, you would know. If you know, you know. But, before we get out of here, there is a Thursday night football game that is of particular interest to my friend from Texas, who we affectionately call Tex. And that is
Go you Dallas Cowboys, go.
The Seattle Seahawks are going to Dallas to play against America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Tex, I mean, this is a game I know. Look, we got a live stream tomorrow. I know you're going to have one eye on talking about JFK, and you're going to have one eye over here watching the Thursday night football game. So if you have to bounce out a couple of times to yell and cheer or do whatever, we'll understand. But again, a very important game really for both teams. Seattle, fresh off the loss against San Francisco, they look like they're making the playoffs, but again, it's really about seeding for them. They want to try to get as much wins as they can to maybe get that first round bye. Dallas, again, trying to keep pace with the other elite teams, the NFC, the Niners and Philly, hoping that Philly will lose this game against the Niners to give them a chance to maybe try to even things up with Philly next week. An important game all around. Again, this game kind of overshadowed by the big matchup between Philly and San Francisco, but not a small game at all, and still very important to the NFC playoff picture. Tex, I'll go to you first. I know who you're going to pick, and I know why, but give me the background. Give me the logic behind your pick.
Well, if you look at the Dallas Cowboys have the longest home winning streak. It's sitting at 12 in the entire league right now. Seattle's coming in. They're sore. Dallas is hot. I mean, they've put up 30 points the last 2 or 3 games. They're rolling right now. Dak Prescott is MVP quality right now. And I didn't think I'd be saying that a few weeks ago earlier in the season. Dak is killing it. The defense is lights out. The defense is scoring touchdowns. Special teams are getting touchdowns. This team, as I told y'all, and I'll just tell everybody on the show, if and when here in a couple weeks Dallas beats the Eagles at home, I'm going to be come on here making some big, bold predictions publicly for the record that, much like Frank and his Jets, prediction, that may or may not be held against me in the future. But you know what? I have prayed to Tom Landry. He has comforted my soul and my spirit. He has nourished me with it. That gray hat came down from the sky and gave me peace in my soul. So we're going Dallas Cowboys 30-14 against those nasty, fake 12th man Seahawks. Let's go Cowboys.
30-14, huh?
Yes, sir. 30-14.
That's a pretty big point.
I'm going balls out.
I understand.
But I'm going balls out. I'm going balls out.
What do you think about this upcoming Thursday night game? Seattle going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. It's an important game for seeding the NFC. Who do you got for this game and why?
I go with Tex here. I go for the Cowgirls. Go beating the Seahawks.
I'm going to forgive that, but only because you're predicting with me. But I'm going to forgive you for that remark. So
for this time, yeah. Got to have my fun poking proud every now and then. Yeah, I got to pick the Cowboys by 14 up against Seahawks. The Cowboys, they're at home. They're going to take that energy that all the other people with the rainbow flags have in the stadium, and they're going to go for the win. I mean, Cowboys are just
something in my eye. What is that? My God!
Is that your Texas Star?
I got it.
Yeah, but the Cowboys are just more put together compared to Seattle.
Yeah, for me, I got to admit, I'm impressed with Seattle this year. I really didn't think they were going to be in the playoff picture at this point. I mean, I liked what they did last year with Geno Smith. That was kind of a good story. He was the comeback player of the year. And after watching him bounce around from team to team, he was with the Jets, which is one of those teams where they've become the Browns ultimately. They're just where quarterbacks go to die. Where they've been the quarterback career killers. It was a nice story to see him go to the last several years has been a pretty competitive division, and and do very, very well. This year, not quite the same, but he still got them in position for the playoffs. I still hate Pete Carroll. I've never been a particularly big fan of his, but
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
But I mean, Seattle's they've been around. They've done this. Pete Carroll is experienced. Geno Smith is experienced. Trading away Russell Wilson and not knowing what you were doing at quarterback for a while, and then just kind of giving it to Geno Smith was almost kind of like he was just going to be a stopgap player. But then he went out there and he put up a lot of good numbers and won a lot of games and got him into the playoffs last year. So I mean, props to him. I think that's a good thing for Geno Smith. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer based on this? Probably not. And it's kind of unfortunate because I'm sure he's a great guy who just goes out there and he plays as hard as he can every week. Dallas's defense is tough. Dallas's offense is tough. Like Marcus said, Dallas is a better put-together team right now. Geno Smith is dealing with I think either an elbow or a shoulder injury that Seattle says is
something in the arm, yeah.
But it's been hampering him a little bit. He did not have a great game against the Niners. I mean, there was a couple of good plays. He made a couple of good throws, but he did just get his ass whooped by the 49ers, which, several quarterbacks have done it. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, like I said, the Niners are going into a hostile environment in Philly. It's going to make things tough. Dallas is not one of the easiest places to go in there and win a game either. The only thing that gives me pause of picking Dallas is Dallas has got they're beating everybody at home, which is great. You expect good teams to do that, but they haven't beaten a lot of teams that are potential playoff opponents. They seem to be beating up a lot of the bad teams, but against the good teams, they've struggled at times. They struggled against the Niners. They struggled against Philly. These are the teams they're going to have to beat in the playoffs, and there is a better than not likelihood that they're going to see Seattle in the playoffs. So that makes me wonder what this game is going to look like in the end. Ultimately, if it's a blowout, I think Dallas blows out Seattle. I don't see Seattle blowing out Dallas. I think if Dak is on it, and if they can't get good in the Seattle's secondary, that Dak is just going to carve them up. They're going to lean on the run game. I'm sticking with Pollard, even though he's been kind of a disappointment to me since week 2. But I mean, Pollard's going to get a lot of runs, a lot of carries late in the game if they're up. So I feel like it's going to be Dallas by a couple of touchdowns. I mean, 30-14 to me seems about right. I feel like Dallas. I feel like you're giving about 5 points too much. I feel like Dallas is probably going to get ahead and then coast. I think they're going to do what's his name, Parcells. They're probably going to do what Parcells used to do back in the day.
Parcells.
They're going to get a lead, and it's going to be like, just kill time, kill the clock. Don't get Dak hurt over a game that we're probably already got won. Yeah. Don't get Pollard hurt over a game. Don't get CeeDee Lamb hurt over a game that we're already up by. At one point, they'll be up by a couple of touchdowns. They're probably going to. It's probably going to be a little bit closer because I don't think that Dallas is going to. They're going to get to a point at some point in the fourth quarter where the game's not really going to be in doubt. So they're going to pull off the gas a little bit, and that might help Seattle get an extra touchdown and maybe close the gap a little bit. But I really don't see Seattle going into AT&T Stadium and beating Dallas. I mean, this would to me be a bigger upset than the Jets beating Atlanta because you're talking about two good teams, but you're talking about a team that right now is it looks to be very good and very practiced, very well put together and ready to go like Dallas, to a team that is surprising some people, but nobody's really scared of them like Seattle. In Seattle, you know what I mean? Yeah. So to me, I mean, as a Niner fan, if you had to say you can play, you've got to win a game, but you can play either Seattle or Dallas. I'm like, I feel like the easier path would be Seattle. I'm less scared of them than I am of Dallas. And this is after the Niners went in there and beat Dallas. Or no, I'm sorry, after the Niners hosted Dallas and beat Dallas.
Yes, it's just that we played that.
Yeah. So even after beating Dallas, I feel like I'm more scared of Dallas than I am of Seattle. So I think Texas is probably about right. I would make it a little bit closer. I would say Dallas like 25-14. I feel like they're gonna pull back a little bit late in the game because you don't want to get up by 14, 15 points and then have CeeDee Lamb, blow his ACL trying to run a route or block. You don't want Dak to take some shot to the leg or get rolled up on in the fourth quarter in a game where you're up by 20 points.
The only thing the only question I would pose to your argument is Dallas is a second half team, and I don't know how closely you've watched many of their games this season, but they don't get like maybe once or twice in the first half of a game have they put 3 or 4 touchdowns on somebody. They are a second half player. They come in with the adjustments, and that's when they really lay it on. And like 2 weeks ago, whenever they pulled Dak out with like 7 minutes left in the game or something, it's the biggest amount of production came after halftime. So that being known, I mean, they could go up 4 touchdowns in the first quarter, and then they just play prevent defense and just run the clock out, like you said, like Parcells would do. But knowing what I do about this team, they score more points late. They let that defense wear down that other team. They let Micah Parsons eat, and that's kind of how they operate here lately. But I mean, hey, we'll see tomorrow night. In 24 hours, we'll be, I'll be watching it, so we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have one of my TVs tuned into it as well. I kind of want to keep one eye on the game just to see how it goes, because I am really interested in how that game goes. Let me. I'm gonna try to go find the.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm gonna try to find the point spread for this game real quick. Let's see. Full schedule of the Dallas Cowboys. As we bring up this full schedule. Yeah, they got the Seahawks, the Eagles, then they're at Buffalo the next 3 weeks, week 13, 14, and 15. So that's I feel like they're probably going to beat Buffalo, but I mean, the Eagles game is definitely going to be a big one. Let's see.
Like I said, once we get to that Eagles game, when the Cowboys win that, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to say something. I'm either going to be a genius or I'm going to be ridiculed for the rest of the football season. But my faith in the Dallas Cowboys is thick and more than plentiful to stand by my team. So, stay tuned, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have the point spread on the NFL.com.
I don't know. Like I said,
but yeah,
it'll be a fun
I think
game
I'm kind of with you. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on Dallas beating Seattle again. Seattle's impressed me this year. I really didn't.
You're cutting out, Frank.
Really thought that last year was a fluke than the standard, but I mean, a lot of that was because the Niners won on that 3-game skid where they couldn't seem to do anything right. But yeah, they've looked pretty decent. But I just don't think they're good enough to beat Dallas.
I don't think so either.
Did you find the point spread? What's the point spread? Let me see if I can find it on here.
Oh, I don't know what it is. Marcus will have to look it up.
Let me see. Point spreads.
You were cutting out real bad. We couldn't hear what you were saying right there.
Yeah.
I didn't know you wanted to look it up.
I thought you said you were looking it up. I'm trying to find it real quick because I'm curious as to what the point spread is.
Yeah, no. No, you were cutting out real bad. No, I don't know what the point spread is. I know what this team is capable of. If I were betting, I would bet 30-14, but that's how I throw my money down.
NFL Seahawks Cowboys. Well, this is all fantasy stuff. It's not really what I'm looking for. But hey Siri, what's the point spread for Seattle at Dallas?
I'm hearing that the Cowboys are favored to defeat the Seahawks by 9 points.
9-point spread.
By the way, if you have
okay,
that's
yeah. I don't think that's bad. I think that's kind of conservative, considering what Dallas has done the last few weeks. And I mean, they've proven they're not a fluke team. Take that Arizona game. I mean, kind of flukish. I mean, I think we can agree on that. I think you've even said that before. Dallas is a good team. The only team that really beat them this year was your 49ers. the Eagles didn't beat them. The Cowboys beat themselves in that game with stupid mistakes by Schoonmaker and Dak. You changed 2 plays in that game, and Dallas is winning that. So I still say Dallas is right there with both of those teams. Records are just a little bit different, but a 9-point spread, that's not bad. I just think it's a bit conservative, but I think it's going to be blown come tomorrow night.
I don't know. Go down in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Who are you picking for Thursday Night Football? The Seattle Seahawks are traveling to the Lone Star State to play the Dallas Cowboys. Let us know in the comments who you guys are picking and why. And that'll wrap it up for us tonight. Good talking, guys. I'm sorry the Rose couldn't be here. It's been fun talking football with him last week, but hopefully he'll be here with us next week.
Be here next time.
Yeah, so that you guys can watch, so he can be here to watch me brag about my Jets prediction, and he can maybe perhaps rub it into text a little bit if somehow Seattle manages to finish off Dallas, and maybe perhaps help me heal my wounds depending on how the Sunday afternoon goes. We will see, but definitely come and hang out with us next week. Thank you to my amazing co-host for talking football with me tonight. I very much appreciate it. Starting with Marcus, what's going on, brother? What do you got going on the internet? Anything at all?
No, other than learning how to make websites, not much. Getting ready to go to school, trying to figure out how stuff's going to balance out before I throw in trying to do YouTube and all that stuff.
And of course, who comes in just at the last second, but the football guru
I noticed
himself.
that.
I know. I mean, he's disappointed that he wasn't invited, but he wasn't shocked. So can you be disappointed and not shocked all at the same time? Well, you missed it, Casey. We were talking about your bacon grease covered jersey. There's no way to possibly watch. You'll have to go back and hear us talk about that. But yeah, and then also too, my good friend, the shape of Lone Star State, my man Tex. What do you got going on the internet, my friend?
Oh, a lot of fun. I get to come on here tomorrow night and tell y'all the truth about who actually killed JFK and educate you fine folks. While I'm halfway distracted with my Cowboys beating the socks off of the Seattle Seabirds or whatever the nonsense bird they are up there. So, yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully we get Alex and, he can join us and we'll have some fun. So come back tomorrow night.
As Tex said, you will see us back here tomorrow night doing the usual movie stuff. We'll be talking about JFK, the 1991 Oliver Stone film, where he gives you his theory as to exactly what happened on that fateful day in Dallas in 1963. That's going to be an interesting one to talk about. A good long movie. We're hoping to have Alex the Garbage Man here. I think he's planning on being by. If not, I'm sure me, Tex, and Jeremy will have plenty to say about this movie. And maybe we'll even do a little bit of a discussion about the overall conspiracy surrounding the death of John Kennedy. We'll try to keep that to a minimum. I do want to concentrate on the movie. But, I mean, you can't talk about this movie and not go into a little bit of discussion about the whole thing. Yeah. So come and check us out for that. We will also be back here next week doing more movie reviews and football talk again next Wednesday. Again, next Wednesday is going to be fun. We're going to plan to talk about a couple of big games we've talked about, Niners and Eagles and Seahawks and Cowboys. We'll definitely be breaking those games down as well as talking about the fantasy implication of those games as well as all the other ones across the NFL schedule in Week 12. Yep. Thanks for coming in and hanging out with us. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you guys on Tuesday as we get until then.
Go Cowboys. Go Cowboys. Number one. God's favorite team. Everybody loves the Cowboys.
It's like Marcus is like, I should be cheering my team and be optimistic like you guys, but I can't because Joe Burrow hurt his little hand.
I want to be optimistic, but I'm more realistic than not. So.
Oh, that's fun.